I know we're recording, but it doesn't matter that we're recording because I can just edit everything. So if somebody has to go to the bathroom, somebody has to leave, or like we have to reset something, don't worry about it.
I
So.
fit myself with Depends for nothing.
And with that, welcome to the Good Keyboard Friends podcast. My name is Hubert the Mad. I am one of the co-hosts here. The other three co-hosts could not make it, Black, Simon, James, and Tangus, but we'll catch them at a later date. But ladies and gentlemen, and gentle squids, I have three amazing guests today. Somehow they all agreed to either come back on or come on for the first time. I have above me, or to the left or the right of me, or below me. I don't know how it's going to look like in the final edit. I have Binge. Hello, Binge.
Hey there.
I have someone that you may or may not know, Mr. Lightning Diego himself. Hello, Diego.
Hello.
And then I have somebody who by far is one of the most handsomest individuals that I've ever seen, and with the most amazing facial hair, Wheat. Welcome, Wheat.
Hello, everyone.
So real quick, it's Wednesday night. It's about 7:26 p.m. Central for me as we're recording this. 2 more days until the weekend, but I just want to hear how everybody is doing. I can start real quick. I am fucking exhausted. This week has been horrible for me in terms of work. I don't want to be a negative Nancy or anything, but every time we have these podcasts during the weekday nights, it's just a godsend for me because it's just an hour-ish to just hang out with friends and just de-stress. But it's been pretty hectic for me in terms of work. But someone else who I've been talking to who may or may not feel the same way, Diego, how's work been so far for you?
Yeah, work's been busy. I mean, I still have, for those who might or might not know, but I also do like keyboard build streams, right? So I still keep those up, but even then it's been kind of difficult to schedule things in because, I go out in the morning for work, and then, come back in the evening, and then it's like you come back, have dinner, or do whatever chores you got to do that you didn't do the day before.
And you're
then
cooking
you have
these
dinner,
days, right? You're cooking.
I mean, we cook at home and whatnot, and so it just takes time, right? And then in the case of my partner and myself, like we will like maybe like play a game of Overwatch or whatever, or like we'll like watch a TV show. Like lately, we've been watching Only Murders in the Building, which is pretty great. But it's been busy, and like basically there's no free time in the evening, and so it's been a lot to pack. But honestly, work has been good. It's been treating me well, but it's just been busy, like just busy. So it's like just day in, day out, and I'm usually in the office every day, like all the weekdays. So
well, I appreciate you spending time tonight. Your presence here is very welcome. Binge, how are you doing, man?
Hey, I'm busier than ever and feeling like it's amounting to less than ever, but it's producing more than ever, and it's such a complicated time to be in. I think if anybody's living around these 50 contiguous states, they're feeling the crunch. Everybody's got to push real hard to just keep up with a lot of changes that are occurring in everyday life, and that it's produced a lot of stress. But I manage by going out and walking my dog every morning, keeping to the routine of needs. And while I'm doing that, I like to take lots of photos of nature and just share that with as many people as possible, because I know not everybody gets the chance to do that. Like there's a little bit of a luxury in being the starving artist, that is my job. So I set my hours. I can work late into the night. Some people have seen me stream for like 4 to 6 hours just sculpting at a time.
Yeah.
And like that's putting in the work. That's giving up on being able to participate in other things that I'd really like to be able to do here, like at home, but it's necessary. And yeah, no, I'm excited about some projects that we've got brewing, and I'm trying to talk with as many people as possible. I want to do this here with you, and it makes me really excited to have the opportunity. Thank you for having me on.
Well, I will touch on those tangents that you brought up very shortly, because there's a second or third reason why I have all of you three on that I will get to. What was it called? Not spoiler.
Foreshadow.
Not miss. Foreshadowing. And speaking of foreshadowing, what's up, man? How you been?
Oh, good. I've been doing well. It seems like it should still be May. The year has gone by very quickly so far, but in a good way. It's just been one thing after another. I got married in May, and then I got home, and then I went to GCon, and then I went home, and then I went to Chicago, and then I got home, and then I went back to Chicago, and then it's just it's been a lot. So good, but busy nonetheless, and yeah, so it's been going by very quickly. Our leaves are changing colors quite quickly here, and I'm like, wow, where has the year gone?
Well, for us, the leaves are changing because it's like massive drought.
Well,
Oh,
it's always dry,
Oh, no.
so it's kind of hard to tell. But we're gonna get snow in like 2 weeks. That's my prediction. So
Oh, okay. Well, if your temperature is dropping like below 70 degrees frequently, yeah, then your trees are probably like, it's time to kick these off.
Mhm.
Yeah, I get it.
Yeah, we're pretty high up there. So like in the morning, sometimes we get to like I think it was 37 this morning. It was chilly, but I enjoyed it. Then it gets up to like 80. It's weird, but
wow,
good.
that's a big range.
Yeah, you were like 6 articles of clothing a day. So
What
outfits.
do you open the windows in the morning so you don't have to use
Oh
AC?
yeah,
And you just...
absolutely. Yeah, no, it's nice. I like the cold a little bit. Like I grew up in the Chicagoland area, so usually on the more frigid side, I would say.
Mm.
Played ice sports. So yeah, enjoy the cold, I'd say more than the average person. So definitely will open up all the windows, keep them open overnight, things like that.
Before I explain why I have these fine gentlemen with me, I wanna do a little housekeeping. So the reason why we have these episodes, yes, we have the main episodes with the main cast, and we talk about origin stories of keyboards and things like that. But every now and then, we find out that the people that we have on, or the people that we will have on, share another common interest besides just keyboards. Maybe it's a little niche inside of keyboards, even though keyboards is still somewhat niche. Artisans. I have become just enthralled with artisans, not in the sense of buying things, but it's just another world that opened up for me as a part of the keyboard community. And after watching or listening or hearing about or reading about these three gentlemen. So Diego, obviously Lightning, you know him as a content creator. He's also a huge artisan guy. Binge and Wheat, they are artisan makers and are also artisan enthusiasts. Binge has been basically the three of you have been in the keyboard community for a long time. Binge is an OG, Diego's an OG, Wheat's an OG. I won't
not
spoil.
quite as long as the other two for sure, but I'd say I'm quite fresh compared to the rest of the crowd.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
to this day, I don't really consider myself that, but people say it, and I'm like, well, I guess the years count differently when you're in the somewhat microcosm community sort of thing, such a small and sort of tight-knit community, like, and because it is considered in a way like a hobby space, and so people come in and go out very quickly, right? Like, at the rate of, within a year or two, you see a pretty big influx and outflux of people and things and products and whatnot. And so, yeah, when, I've been around the community for quite some time, like, much longer than that. But it's weird, at least for me, when people say, "Oh, you're an OG." I'm like, I don't think so. I don't consider myself one. But when I see Binge, I'm like, oh yeah, he is OG.
Well, like just to
know?
put it in context, I just celebrated my 12th year casting keycaps.
Wow.
Congrats, dude.
Thank
Wow.
you.
That's
Thank you.
wow.
That was August 30th.
Wow.
That's a
That's
big
the
one.
date.
What?
Yay.
No, I'm not gonna. So, and you've been part of the keyboard community since longer than that, obviously. For those of you
it was 2007 that I started.
Like
2009
years.
that I
Wow.
officially made a Geek Hack account. But I was lurking before then.
I gotcha.
And different times, very different times. Back then, I think the craziest thing that was happening, like now, it's big meetups. You've got like Norbauer, like, Adam Savage, like what?
Yeah.
You got crazy stuff like that happening, but we had this guy named TP for Tissue who would post an off topic about how
still have around.
I mean, I keep up with Geek Hack a lot less than I should, but I just remember following one of his threads about making sure that bacon grease splatter wasn't a problem for his kitchen. And he got all kinds of contraptions and would just like do different things to reduce the spray of bacon grease as he was cooking it. And then he'd get into his crazy like health topics and yeah, that's the kind of fun we had.
Oh my god.
That's the best kind of fun in the forum like that, I think.
It's true. I mean,
Kinda shooting
either it's
off
that or you're just like, what do you type with? One of the 4 switch colors?
Yeah, exactly. Oh yeah, great, congrats. You have one of the 4 not primary colors.
How did you get into Artisans? Your artisan origin story, and then how did you become a maker? Start with Binge.
Okay. I saw the first Clack drop in 2010. And I said, that's too expensive for me. I could buy a lot of lunch meals with that money. And I didn't have like a terribly fantastic job to write home about. And I was doing a lot of like, if I was spending money, it was on this like custom PC thing that I was doing, and I was brokering electronics to South America. So like colleges would throw out all of their computers and they're like, but we'll let you recycle them if you just come here with a truck and take them. So I'd part them out and then redistribute those chips to South America and components and stuff. And I'd scrub everything to make sure it was legal, because I think around that time there was like some weird embargo stuff. So like they just wanted computers for non-nefarious things like regular stuff, and it was hard to get components. And I spent a lot of my money just making sure that was going on, and then working just like a regular 9 to 5 and thinking about, man, I love my Philco Mage's Touch 2 with the old school MX Browns. This is so great. Maybe I should put some dampening O-rings under the caps for a cushier experience. Like, I mean, there were all kinds of things people were doing, and this cap looked really cool. The Clack skull.
Just to give a context, how much was the drop? I think people might want to know that first. It's to give the full picture.
It was it was like $17.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And like just for reference, that is 3 lunches. Okay. just put that out there.
Yeah, back in the day.
3 whole lunches. They still had the $5 foot long back then.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. It is true.
So, you know, I was just like, I'll get it the next time it comes around. The next time never came. The next time never came. These things quickly became unobtainium, and I kept my eye out. I followed the start of like other new artists like Brobot and what is now Hotkeys Project.
Mhm.
So I saw all this stuff pop up, and I saw people talk about how they think artisans might be made. Like I had a discussion with Anson, who's been mentioned, I think, in this space before.
Yep.
About it at the first KeyCon. Like after I had made my first keys, he was like, I still wonder if Clack does it that way. I'm like, well, I don't know, because I was really new to casting. Like I'd only been doing it for like 2 years, and Clack has a lot of finish on his work that just it seems unreal. He was building artisans to a specification that is only starting to become commonplace, like post COVID. And he did that all the way in 2010. So I got really frustrated when he released a new sculpt that I needed to have. It was his ogre. I needed the ogre because I really like Warcraft,
Yes.
and it hit all of those thematic, and even the style kind of reminded me of some of the old like Warcraft 2. If you had the manual, they had all these like shots of like the orcs and Lothar in it and stuff, and I'm like, oh, this is so cool, the line work is awesome, and this kind of just reminds me of those illustrations so much. Had to have it, so I did everything that I could to get one. It was a big no.
Oh.
It was a big no. And the aftermarket, like, they shot up, and I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna figure this out. I'm gonna figure out how artisans work. I'm gonna make a guide that I record my experience, and I tell everybody what I experienced and what kind of theories I have about the process, and we'll see where this goes. And when I started making really, like, I look at them now and I'm just like, oh my gosh.
Want to see some of them?
Yeah.
I probably have them around somewhere, but
Okay,
not
it's okay.
here with me right now. But yeah, no, I did some joke stuff for people in the community. I did stuff that I thought was serious at the time. I started by taking regular donor blanks, like just keys that you wouldn't miss, and building on top of them with this stuff called epoxy sculpt. It's a like aggregate mixed with epoxy, so you can finish it like you would stone or concrete or whatever. You could sand it, paint it, whatever you wanted to do, and I'd use that stuff that it sets up really quick, and it's sticky to your tools. You can do better things than I did with it, but I tried my best. Made molds, cast caps, shared my process, and people kept buying them.
Yeah.
People kept buying them and being interested and asking a lot of questions, and I think it just snowballed from there. I got fast forward from like mid 2013 to 2017. I had so much, like, I was doing my job way worse than I should have because I was casting in the middle of doing my job. We had work from home at that point, and I was like, I'm not doing what I should be doing with my work, and I feel really terrible about that. So I'm just gonna go full time into keycaps, and that's where I've been since then. So since 2017, I've been full time.
Hell yeah.
Wow.
I know there's obviously ups and downs, but that's amazing.
Quite
I'll
the
go
journey.
yeah. I'll go clockwise for me. It's not clockwise for you guys, and it's not clockwise for the final edit. But I want to hear from Wheat. I want to hear about your origin story in terms of artisans, and then creating artisans. How
No,
did you get in?
absolutely. I got into artisans pretty quickly after I'd say getting into keyboards as a whole. I feel like it usually does go keyboards then artisans for, I'd say, most people.
Yeah,
But
almost everyone.
yeah, unless you're a true resin addict, then you can just dive right in. But so pretty quickly after joining my first group, I was in 2021. So again, not that long ago compared to some of the other folks, but my first keycap that I won was a Darth Luga by Alpha Keycaps. It was the Nazar one. It was just like the little evil eye, and I think it's the GMK Evil Eye collaboration there. But uh, I had been looking around for quite a while, just at like different, obviously looking for cute little keycaps to match my boards, things like that. But really started to appreciate it more as I dove into like the just variety of all of these different keycaps and the complexity, then figure out how to make them and the intentionality and design behind all of these decisions that go way over my head at the time, and I really started to develop an appreciation for it. At the time I was living in Seattle, and then when I ended up moving to Utah, um, I was looking for something to kind of fill my time. Didn't know a whole lot of folks out here, and had started to really get into collecting keycaps a little bit more at the time, and learning about the process just through absorbing resources that Binge especially had definitely put out, and other various resources about like learning how to use a Z-Bot, for example, is a very cheap and accessible. It was like $40 to get the starter kit for it, and I was like, that's okay if I never touch it again. At the time, so gave it a shot, and then really fell in love with it. And it's like from, I think, the time that I like really I made my first just blank. It was just I made a mold of just obviously like a cherry blank, and from then until now, I think I've just like been essentially constantly casting. Like I truly do enjoy it. Um, I am fortunate enough to like obviously be able to maintain my job and making keycaps as a hobby. It is nice to have a relatively self-sufficient hobby from my standpoint. And also to like, it does feel cool that people appreciate my art every once in a while. And it's nice. So I do really enjoy just the whole community, and I think that definitely has kept me in the hobby and continuing to enjoy it more. That's like, it's very rare. I think, in my opinion, and I look at some of my friends who outside of the hobby who maybe don't have quite a home that I like to think I have with some of the resin community, is like these are people who it's like, oh, I will happily go travel to a meetup across the country to go see, and they will also happily do the same. And it's like, yeah, we're there to talk about keycaps and things, but it's also like you're developing genuine friendships and meeting real people along the way that, for the most part, I think are in it for the right reasons, which is always refreshing.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. When I think of community, like you said, I think of Diego, because the way that I found out about Artisans is when he streams, as you both probably know, there's always that ledge. I don't know if it's always been there because I know you've moved a couple times, but that ledge.
The death shelf. Thank you.
Death shelf. Yeah. And in my mind, I was like, oh, that's cool. Don't know where that is. And then when he gets to the point in his build, where he either asks what he should put on, or he chooses it himself. He brings out the trays and more trays and more trays of just, and then all like color coded, or maybe the same maker or something.
Terrible.
No. But for me,
Embarrassing.
no.
I feel so revealed.
Yeah.
Hopefully your partner is not hearing this. No.
It's not the full collection.
over there.
Don't let him lie to you guys.
It's hidden under Kiwi's food drawer, right? That's where the more trays are.
Yeah. That's where it is.
Oh no, but
That's where he keeps the good stuff.
yeah.
Kiwi
That's where
safeguards
the
it. I mean, I'll be protected forever then.
that's where the binge the initial binges are, the artisans there. But
The binge faces.
No, but-
Those are the very OG.
oh man, but for me, just a novice, don't know anything about artisans. Diogo stream, I think, like many people, was my introduction to them. But how were you introduced to artisans, Diego? When did you first get into it? Was it similar to Wheat, where you got into keyboards first and then artisans, or it was at the same time?
It's for me. It sort of happened simultaneously in the sense that I got exposed to them right away. I would say that like what was different was that. So actually, I kind of, when I recount my story of how I joined the hobby, I always tell people like, oh, I joined the hobby on this exact date because I actually remember the date, and also because it is the date in which, I actually joined the hobby. And that was like, it's like December 3rd, 2016, something like that. And my Keycap account is pretty close to that date. I registered just around that time or right before, maybe even. And so the funny thing is, I kind of got into this because I was, at the time I was working down in the Washington DC area, and I was like on the interview trail I was applying to graduate school, right? And so I was applying to schools and whatnot, and on the interview trail I kind of like basically got to meet this guy who essentially worked right across from where I was working, like right across my building essentially. He was like essentially a neighbor of mine, and we kind of met in this interview trail. And then he told me about this meetup happening in Washington, D.C., which is really funny because that's actually the first time I technically met Binge, but I didn't know who he was at all. Okay. But I'll get back into that part of the story in just a second. Okay. So I went to the first, DMV or DC, Maryland, Virginia area meetup, right? And that was on December 3rd, 2016 at I think it was like Georgetown University. I think if you search it might pop up on Reddit. But I went to that meetup because my friend told me about it. He was like, hey, actually this, Saturday, this thing is happening. Do you want to go check it out? I've been into this hobby for a bit, or rather I've been getting into it and it's super interesting. And I was like, oh, I actually knew about this since when I was a student. I had a mechanical keyboard, I had MX Browns on it, and I still use that, right? And I was like, oh yeah, I mean, it sounds cool. It's kind of techie, kind of cool, right? And so I went and kind of fell in love with this whole idea of customizable keyboards in general. And then funnily enough, at the, nowadays it's much of a bigger event, but one of the, very few prizes that was available there were some keycaps made by, I think it was Iconic. They essentially were a pair of friends from Malaysia. I think it was Yutzi, who is currently TGR Sam, and Huahenza, who also doesn't have the best reputation because he was the organizer of the Exent group buy, and that didn't end up very well in 2017. But they were like friends, and they got into casting because of their friend Krytone, who is under the brand Crap in Malaysia. So they got into casting, and I got a keycap that Yutzi had cast. It was this. Actually, I have it right here. I brought it because I figured people would be talking about it. And it was this little see if it focuses, but it was this little goo keycap. It's just translucent blue.
I remember that guy.
Goo keycap. And so this is the Iconic goo. And I just got this at the meetup. It was free at the end, and someone told me, oh yeah, this guy from Malaysia named Yutzi made it, and he asked to send. If you don't know him, that's fine. It's cool. And then eventually I found out, oh, he's the guy who makes those keyboards out there that look like Korean customs or whatever. And back then I was like, oh, well, cool. A little extra novelty type of keycap to put on my at the time, I think I got like I had like a Tata 60 that my friend from school had like gifted me, and that was cool, right? But then through that meetup, I got to meet other friends in the area, right? And so they are still to this day very close friends of mine in this community. I can shout some of them out. Zachy Adams from DC, Rmendis also from that area. He went by, back then it was his username was Cheese Puff, but Clark Rowe. So those three became very close friends of mine. And those three in particular were pretty much already very deep into artisans, or not very deep. Rmendis was just starting, actually. He and I started at the same time. That month, December 2016, was the month we both had started looking into the idea of artisans. Like, we both had known about, like, vintage computers and keyboards, and artisan keycap sort of became this thing where it's like, it's like a functional piece of small miniaturized art, right? Where you have, a medium that is, malleable by hand, essentially, because it's clay, and then you kind of cast this into a mold, and then you can kind of recreate various colorways and whatnot, depending on your creativity and all that, and you can use all kinds of materials, and it took me some time to find all of that out, right? And so I figured, there must be a lot of makers and brands out there, and I kind of slowly got to find out that there, like, if I wanted a specific theme, or there was only maybe one or two makers out there that ever did that, and that if they did it, it was not always. It was only whenever they felt like it, which meant that you either had to wait for it, or you either had to, you can't make suggestions either, because suggestions, they're not necessarily taken up that well. It's not like something is done on demand. It's kind of like it's an artist, right? It's an art. And so, artists will make what they feel like making at a given point in time, given their inspirations, given whatever creativity they have. And, at the same time, for some of them, they might adjust to things like market demand and like what people really want to see at that given point in time. And so I kind of fell deep into sort of like, just at the first, it was just like blanks, right? Like pretty blank. So like a lot of people in the community, especially those who joined through Reddit, kind of had a lot of interest in it. Like Jelly Key became this big kind of like icon in the community, because they were like this maker from Vietnam, and they're basically essentially doing like the mass-produced version of keycaps that back years before them as well, like Hotkey's project had kind of done a lot of that too, right? And so, obviously it took me years to kind of learn all this history as well. And it was also after the meetup that I learned that the guy in the back who was stamping Instax photos was Binge at the meetup. And I remember he came in a little later in the meetup, and he was like stamping pictures of keycaps and dogs and, writing on the papers. And I was like, is this person just here to use the library? or like is he part of the meetup? And people were like coming up to him and saying like, hey dude, like, oh, it's been a while, blah blah. I was like, who is this guy just stamping pieces of paper and photos? Like, he doesn't seem like, because he was so into it, he was like and like talking to people and bam, bam, and writing stuff. I was like, oh, he's just really into his work. He's here at the library doing work, essentially, right? And I had no idea he was a keycap maker, and no idea, obviously, who he was, like alias and all that, because also, like, back then the meetups were a lot more casual. Not everyone necessarily had a name tag or whatever. So I was like, I don't recognize this person, but they're doing their thing, and I kind of like, just at the time I didn't know anybody. It was like I knew maybe two people, right? So I just like let it slide, and then later I was like, oh, that's that person who has this particular brand and who makes these particular keycaps. I was like, oh, I see.
He's just a weirdo.
But I think the cool part about this meetup experience was how, like, it essentially felt like everyone was on the same like playing field, like same level in terms of appreciating the stuff they like, in terms of like, sharing what they're interested in, right? And so that's what I really liked about this community. It was not just that. I mean, like, it had some development already, But it was that kind of like when it came to these meetups and these community events, everyone was sort of on the same playing field, and people just kind of openly talk to each other and were very nice about all that. Like they're very nice about sharing their stories, sharing their information, sort of like just kind of connecting on a very human level, and really just sharing the excitement they had for a specific thing. Whether that was small pieces of art, or whether that was the way their keyboard sounded, or their endless chase of the perfect keyboard, whatever that might be. And so that's kind of how I really got into it. And then it was, at the time I was, again, kind of like Binge was implying, or was like mentioning rather, I was not like really working a very exceptional job. I was pretty much earning bottom of the barrel, and I pretty much was paycheck to paycheck, and it was outside of essentially my base expenditures. I had nothing else to spend, and so I only very slowly got into that process, basically over the whole course of the year, because I was doing like other side gigs. I was doing like photography stuff with a friend and whatnot. And that's kind of like, I was like, oh, I'm interested in this new hobby. And so I'm going to start funneling some like, personal funds just to have fun and like kind of explore this space. And so that's kind of how I got into Artisans. And it certainly didn't help that I had friends who were already really into it, who were like, yeah, just, they're cool, just do it. Or they would be like, if you don't like it, you can just give it to me. I was like, okay. It's like they're like, yeah, I'll just pay you cost for it, like whatever it costs, doesn't matter, you will have zero, like no loss for it, right? I was like, okay,
Yeah,
whatever.
just go ahead, enter all these raffles for me.
Yeah,
please,
right, like that kind of stuff. They'll be like,
hey,
do you hear? They'll be like, do you hear about this sale? It's very
Yeah.
cool. And I was
you
like,
have 35 seconds, go.
and then well, this was before, so the kind of like this big flash sale type of event, which was like that Nightcap's Poison Summer event, happened pretty much a year into my time in the hobby, right? Because by that time, when I entered the hobby, also, Clack, Clack or Clack Factory, whichever name you might want to prefer to use, he was already essentially phased out of the community. He had health issues, and he had essentially kind of ghosted the community by just fading out of view after his posts on his sale forums, sale threads. And so essentially he was inactive at that point. And so there was not much of a like first come first serve rush for a sale kind of culture. It was like what I got used to in the very first year was sales happening essentially seasonally, like kind of like depending on holidays or events or themes that would happen during the year. And actually that was very exciting for me, because I was like, oh, I can look forward to a winter event, It's sort of like when you play a game and you get a winter event, and the sale is themed after that, and all the colors come together for that theme. Of course, I also realized that after I started discovering Binge's work, that Binge operated on way beyond just the idea of a theme. Obviously, I did eventually get to know Binge's work through his 4x4 sale, which was a huge endeavor, and he might recall, obviously.
Yeah.
That was crazy, but essentially it was a selection of colors, and there are like essentially bins of colors that he would conduct colorway selection into all of the sculpts available on his repertoire of work. And essentially you are sort of like entering a semi-blind bag / preferential selection, but it was based on like a pool of colors rather than specifying exactly what you want and where. And so it was a very interesting type of like sale where people were allowed to kind of like enter for specific batches of things. And they're also priced very fairly at the time, in my opinion. And I know that was like a huge endeavor for Hungerworks Studio. But anyway, I won't digress any further. That's kind of how I got into it. It was just a mix of going to this meetup, getting enabled by friends, and thinking that it's pretty cool that everyone's on the same field, getting interested in the same things.
Can we call Binge the librarian from now on?
No. I take horrible notes anymore. You can call me the wanderer. I don't know. So something to imply that I've been around for a long time. I could probably tell you some stories. People know me, but the archivists in this community have stepped up in ways that I can't even fathom. There's a guy who made the Keycap archivists, and that's Zech. He's like not even really part of the community anymore, but he made basically a huge database that people can load information about artisans into. Because we really didn't do record keeping, and I kept my record keeping to the auth cards that went with each and every single one of my keys. And the reason why I did it that way is because I wanted people to be interested in giving a shit about the thing that they had and that it was unique. So I always put a lot of work into talking about my auth cards and saying you should keep your auth cards. You should, if you sell your cap, you should give your auth card with it. It's actually important because it gives a lot of information about how, like, what's the name of the colorway? How many of this key should exist?
Yeah.
You know, in numerical value, and which one did you get? Which could imply, like, depending on how I was making them, that could have been the first of like 8 casts of that colorway, or it could have just been, you know, one of the 8 molds I cast at that one time. All of that could be a discussion topic for people to just talk about their work and have some information about it. So, like, I think that's the extent that I did anything close to librarian like.
This is a real quick off-topic question before I get to the actual tangent. Is Wheat, do you travel more than like I know obviously people travel for meetups and things like that, but I forgot who. Maybe it was Diego. I'm not sure, but someone asked me, "Oh, is Wheat going to be on the East Coast or the West Coast for this?" And it made me think: are you Mr. Worldwide? Do you travel a lot, or
No,
just artisans?
it's been a busy summer. That's pretty much it. My whole family's in like the Chicagoland area, so I go back there pretty frequently. Currently live in Utah. Gonna be actually like it's hard for me to say no, and then I'm driving to Washington next week. So like it's I like to travel, but this is definitely on the further end of the spectrum on frequency for me for sure.
Yeah.
But no, mountain time, that's where I'm at. No one knows that Utah's on mountain time for some reason.
I used to live in Utah. Again, really quick tangent. When I was like 4 until I was 11, we lived in Midvale, Utah, close to
Okay.
Sandy.
Yeah, I know
So
where that's at.
yeah. Uh, the question, now just tell me where what your mother's maiden name and the make of your first car, and then I'll find
Okay. Yeah, you need my first pet and my childhood best friend.
you. And if they were the same person or the same thing, that'll be great as well. But
Oh my.
the three of you, I have a question for the three of you, because the three of you talk about community, and paying it forward and things like that. The artisan makers in the artisan community, are they more widespread in terms of, oh, this person's in Vietnam, this person's in Indonesia, than keyboard makers? Because for me, I always hear about an artisan maker, and it's surprising to me that they're in this specific country. It seems like there's so many makers. This might sound stupid, but it has such a wide-reaching aspect to it versus than just keyboards. I think, in my mind, I've always been curious about that.
I think most of the manufacturing and in that sense also, like, a lot of the logistical hurdles get solved around in and around Asia, Southeast Asia, for keyboards. Like, just kind of putting that out there. I mean, unless you're talking about certain things that happen in Europe, like if we're talking about works that Salvin does, there just aren't too many places that have makers like industrial makers willing to do stuff for keyboards. So it will look really small and focused, but I think there are probably just as many people involved in the planning process smattered all over the world as there are artisans.
Yeah,
It,
I would
it
agree with
takes
that.
it takes teams of people to do all the polish and planning that go into the successful group buys. And I think the reason why you'll see an artisan from, you know, any pocket of any international community is because once people see an artisan keycap, they get it. And they understand that that's a means of expression within their hobby that isn't just buying some sort of off the shelf, big IP labeled toy or desk mat or customized key set. Like it's not corporate, and so they can have a piece of it, and people who see it for what it is generally tend to pursue it.
And it's more I don't want to say it's easier to make than keyboards, but because obviously if you don't cast correctly, it could be a health hazard.
It's a smaller scale, and I think it's also different because I've seen people make keycaps with very interesting materials. And I'm a traditionalist. I know I've talked Wheat and Lightning's ears off about like where I think the art is in this and where I find the beauty, and it's a lot of me thing. But like if you look at the global, what people are actually doing, they're getting really creative, and they're like, so long as it's got a functional stem and like clearance, it can be used as a keycap. It really doesn't matter what it's made of. We got people making keycaps out of stones. We got people doing thread work and using fabric to make keycaps. Now there are plastic components there, but like they still make the majority of the viewable and touchable area out of textiles. And you've had people also taking just the sculpting material, like polymer clay, and making stuff directly out of that. There are jewelers who make silver keycaps. I can't think of any more examples, but I'm sure there are more. And I think just on a smaller scale, people with specialized skill sets see exactly what this is. They're like, this isn't corporate. I have an interest in this and I want to pursue it. And some of them are already artists, or other people just have an interest in a certain craft and they just see how it can come together and they go and do it. And their community supports them.
Yeah, I guess I never thought about it that way. Again, this is super novice artisan person asking. What are the types of artisans? Like there's blanks, there's sculpts. Is there like a 3 or 4 specific categories that you can
We got to plug Bob Mendis's project. Come on, brain. Artisan Archive.
Collector.
Artisan Collector. That's the one. Artisan Collector. That site has a lot of these questions answered. Like if you pull that up, you will get a very thorough write-up of
keycap.
What is a keycap anymore?
What is a keycap, indeed?
Wow.
The articles mostly are going to be.
That's so cool.
Well, they're articles and guides, and yeah.
Dang. I'll link. Not only will I link these 3 gentlemen's socials in the description, but I'll link these websites as well.
But I want to give Wheat and Lightning a little bit of a chance to shine here because they see a lot of artisan stuff.
Yeah,
and they're an awesome resource. Go for it, guys.
Well,
so you want to know what categories there are?
Yeah, and then building off of that, which styles do you like? and or like to sculpt in the creators, for the creators? Is there a specific style that you like for Diego and the other two?
So I would say, I mean, you guys can agree, right? Like generally, there's going to be the keycap shape stuff, which is like people will call them blanks or blank-like. You know, there are some sculpts that are sort of like they carve like carve negatively, like carve out part of a blank and then form shapes out of it too. There's sculpts like that too. Technically sculptures, right? Because it's kind of like chiseling out a part of it. But it still has a generic shape of a typically top row profile, most popular cherry profile, or I guess back in the day of Clack, it was OEM profile, right? Like the standard like Philco OEM or the Topri OEM type of keycap, right? And then you have, so Binge is currently showing the, that's the new one.
This is formerly known
as, right? But essentially, it comes from the Earl Escape. But Earl Escape is a nod to escape keys, like the top row keycap, the top left keycap on a keyboard, right? So it's like blank-like shaped, and so there's sculpts like that. There's keycaps like that, and then on the other side you will have fully sculpted, sculptures or figurines essentially, that have completely different shapes, and so those will vary drastically. And for example, if you look at Wheat's most recent slug work, like that also has a shape that is more atypical, I would argue, in terms of seeing what the dimensions of a typical keycap are, right? And but these are all typically sculpted in consideration of the dimensions of what fits on a keyboard, what is still mountable and still usable on a keyboard. But some sculpts will have more elongated dimensions on one axis over the other, or they're going to be protruding a lot taller than other keycaps, and that's totally fine. I mean, I personally find a lot of appeal in sculptures that don't necessarily adhere to like that, just like the keycap shape standard. Like, so for example, one of Binge's old work, the Grizzle key, which I have right here, is one of my favorites. Is one of them that I really like. But this is essentially sculpted on top of a keycap, as you can see, right? And so there's sculptures like that, and there's a lot of other things that are like shaped in just all kinds of ways, right?
Hold on,
and
this one's really cool, Diego. Check this out.
Oh, whoa! Is that like looks almost
so
like
it's a 3D
bonsai.
print pen. So somebody made a bonsai using a 3D print pen.
Oh,
And it's got a fully, like, this is all filament.
Yeah. Wow. The idea of a 3D print pen actually reminds me of Clack a lot, because there is, for those who, this is kind of like hidden lore, so to speak, but Clack was a toy industry person. And so way before 3D printing became a normal thing, there were also like those utensils where you could extrude like material out of it, essentially the same idea as a 3D printer, and you could make polymers and like basically like kind of like create things with it. And at the beginning people would make like circuitry with it, and then now people make all kinds of things, right? So a 3D printing pen kind of reminds me of that, like toy making and small design work like that. But personally, I appreciate blank like work a lot, especially like complex work like Binge's, like Earl Escape. But I would say my personal appeal in artisan keycaps has been seeing sculpture, like fully sculpted work. The main thing for me is that for me is a much more thought out, not thought out, that's a wrong term, but I would say it's a very different expression of art than the one that's constrained by the dimensions of the keycaps. But to still do so while you still have to consider that it has to be mountable and it has to fit and look a certain way on a keyboard, it takes a lot of thinking, it takes a lot of planning and a lot of redoing. and a lot of failure. And I think for me, that's a much cooler expression of art to me than the one that's constrained by the blank only and just keeping it there, because essentially you're truly keeping things inside of a box if you keep it to the blank shape. And
Right.
I appreciate it, but I think it has its limitations.
And before we get to wheat, it can be more than a 1U artisan. Like in the term
Yeah.
artisan can be
Oh,
like
yeah.
an escaper or like
I
an
made a
enter.
space bar before.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it's called the Space Bear because it's a polar bear escaping Earth's atmosphere and flying away into the stars.
I have a non-1U key that Chad Rubber Hose made. That's the Lucy.
Ooh.
So that's a 1.5U, right?
Yeah.
So this one fits on like HHKB style backspace or bottom row keys that are 1.5U. So there's cool stuff like that. I mean, it's obviously more atypical, and makers also won't necessarily cast them all that often, but they do exist. And Binge, who did pioneer the synth project with Joey Quinn, who is a pretty active community member as well, and in a way sort of a bit of a historian, bit of an archivist type of person as well in the community, just has a very strong interest in that, in wacky art expression stuff and just like history of it. They pioneered this project called the Synth, which essentially is a molding and sculpting platform for keycap makers. And it adheres to a lot of essentially important modern standards of keycap design, which involve like adhering to things like the cherry profile or keycap clearance and whatnot. And so it's a cool
is
tool.
a 1.25U
That's
version.
Yeah. So and then there's like different sizes. So that's pretty cool.
I am curious about Wheat's opinions. I know obviously you don't just make trees, but we all
Mainly,
fucking
though.
love your trees, dude.
By number, mainly trees. That's definitely fair to say.
You like that style? I know you also made FN sculpts.
Yeah. So I'd say a lot of my sculpts are sculpts on blanks, as we've been talking about. I think that especially for like the first, let's say, real sculpt that I produced with the pine blank, that's definitely the most approachable. It's not that it's easier necessarily, but it was a lot less of I have to think about exactly where the overhangs are going to be on the sides, or having to worry about even feeding it at different angles. Even I could just leave the mold face down, and gravity is going to help me out a lot more than Binge having all faces to mess around with. There's a little bit more, say, thoughtfulness that has to go into every process. So it was definitely a more approachable thing for me initially. I do tend to, I'd say, if I'm looking to sculpt things, I do like sculpting on blanks. This is a keycap to me, which I like, but then there are also very much times where I want to go above and try and stretch that a little bit. Like, for example, like I have the one sculpt is the drop head, which is about 4 keycaps tall, which is like it's on a keycap, it's on a function key, so it's technically a function key sculpt, but like it's not at all something that's meant to be on the function key. So
Right.
sometimes I like to like intentionally to go a little bit outside of that, but for the most part, I mean, yeah, when I look at what I collect, there are a lot of sculpted blanks or sculpts on blanks. And then also very intentionally going outside of that. So like a little bit of everything when it comes to like what I collect, but for I'd say like my style of what I've been making a lot up until now, definitely helps to have a very defined keycap surface to work with for how I planned a lot of like my colorways or just the ideas that I've been thinking about. And personally, also, if I'm gonna do multiple caps or multiple sculpts at once, I like to have relatively similar processes with each of them. Just easier for me to think about, okay, this is the trunk colors for both trees, whether it's the arbor tree or the pine tree. It's like I have a little bit more of a mental clear note for that, but it's the same process. You just gotta think about it, be a little bit intentional about it ahead of time to avoid any this stupid mistake.
I threw wheat in the deep end the first time I met him.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm gonna sit down and I'm gonna talk about sculpting here, and I'm gonna approximate my Earl sculpt, but I'm gonna make it like how I see your vibe. Like, and I think the name for it should be called the natural or all natural. Ugh. That pun hurts, but
It's perfect.
he just had some NSP clay, and I started making this sculpture and I left it with him and he finished it, and it's like if that Earl sculpt that I was showing earlier were kind of cursed to be a tree or something like that, or maybe the tree was always kind of Earl shaped, and it doesn't look really like a blank. It's got the hintiest hint of there being a squareness to it, like there being very 5 distinct sides. But it's definitely like a natural, sprawling, viney, leafy kind of construction. I can only imagine like trying to color that thing just being something you're gonna be like, okay, I gotta plan this out. How is this shot order going to work? How long is this gonna take?
Yeah. There's a couple tries that I've gotten in. I'm like, this is gonna work, and then I get 4 shots into it. I'm like, this is not working at all, and
Oh,
I
no.
accidentally just used all of the green. So we're gonna try again tomorrow. So it's like things like that happen here and there for sure. But I think in the essence of it is just sometimes spontaneous sculpting
The
can
spontaneity breeds a lot of innovation, and I think pushing for that next step in like what you haven't done or haven't experienced a whole lot can inform you not only like what's out there, but you become more aware of like where your skill set is in the present, and that's like a really useful skill to have as an artisan, because there's like this tightrope you got to do, managing your expectations and having something humble you to the point where you're like, okay, I'm squarely here on my ability to cross this tightrope, and let's use these tools to make it easier for me to get across it. And you talk with other artists about these experiences that you have and build up that skill set. It's really cool hearing about a little bit more, because I get to meet you only so often. We like, and the times that we've met online are some of the, I don't want to say few, but like infrequent times that I get to like actually pick your brain, hear your thoughts about some of this stuff, and like kind of hearing where your proclivities lie and seeing you then go, yeah, but I like stretching my limbs. Like that makes me super happy, because I see you doing it. Like you aren't just talking about it, you're doing it. And it's like, I think at this point it's inspiring other people to look at maybe, because I think you're pretty open about your process. So you're also open about where your current limitations are, and you're pushing, and that inspires other people to push. Yeah. Like get stuff done.
It sometimes is definitely frustrating when it's like people come to me with like, oh, I have this great idea, and it's like, oh wow, that is fantastic. I would love to do that. And then you get there and you're like, not gonna happen. But we have goals now, and that's kind of where it's nice to be in. Yeah, definitely a space where it's like I'm surrounded by absolutely fantastically talented people, and then it's like you get the opportunity to peer into their mind. Like, I think about the first time that I casted like something other than a tree for the first time. I was blown away by how astoundingly difficult it was. And I'm like, how do people control resin when it's not gravity? Like how do you do that? So learning and getting that, yeah, have those conversations with people obviously like you, Binge, and like I think like Alheckz and some other makers who I definitely get to experience your process a little bit more is really eye opening to be like, wow, I've been wasting a lot of time, or like I could do this better, or even sometimes like that's a really great efficiency or an improvement that I can make, but like we can only make so many changes at one time. So it's like
Yeah.
trying to figure out what is those priorities and working through those processes. And like you said, how to share it. It's like for me, the stakes are relatively low. Like if people have questions about my mistakes or my caps, like happy to go through them. Can't be the best answer. I might not know why things happen sometimes, but I'll do my best. Like
The last question tangent I have for the three of you before we get to the good keyboard friend of the week. I can go first to give you three some time to think, but how has artisans and or the artisan community impacted your life? It can be as deep as you want to make it. It can be as shallow, but real quickly, this is also a thank you to the three of you. This me going first. At the end of the day, it's just a community. The one constant is just the community. Whether you're a big fan of keyboards, keycaps, switches, artisans, it's fun to talk about those things or to do those things or show off those things with friends. A long time ago, I don't know the actual date, but Diego started something in his server, which was basically a giveaway channel, and he started giving away keycaps, artisans, and gave the ability for others to give artisans. And that was actually the very first artisan that I have ever gotten was thanks to that. It was from MSA. I
Oh
don't know
wow.
what this is.
That is so that one is another interesting in terms of like, we're talking about different media, right? So that's by Masher Studio, if I recall correctly. She does essentially flowers sculpted in clay, in different colored clay. And then essentially I think these are baked, right? I'm not 100% sure, but I think these are baked clay essentially. This is pretty much similar to what Tiny from Tiny Makes Things was doing early on in her sort of like keycap journey as well. She was also doing sculpting things in clay and then like baking them. And then, like every maker has different like finishes and like the ways to finish things or like ways to add color to things, but this was that's Masher Studios work. Yeah, that's more recent too, but there have been obviously a lot more makers popping up trying, you know, compared to like resin casting. Some of them are simpler methods, but they're very effective.
It's also a very effective way to get people into artisans. The giveaway channel. I wasn't an artisan guy.
That's why my artisans channel, if you come to the Lightning Keyword server, it says welcome and I'm sorry, I guess. Because unfortunately it's true. If you happen to stroll around the channel and then you're like, oh, that looks cool, just like I did at my first meetup, and then you're like, oh, maybe okay, $17, maybe I'll try it out.
Yeah.
A little more, okay, maybe I skip a few more meals, and then you
need those
do that
$5 footlongs,
and then it'll change your life, and I can tell you more about how it changed mine.
Yeah. So I want to say thank you to Diego for enabling me through MSA. MSA was the donator of this artisan, and then guess what I did right after that? How wheat impacted my life. So Diego impacted my life by starting me into Artisans, MSA Diego, the lightning cord. My first artisan that I ever bought was from Mr. Wheat here.
Oh, it was a
You got
Christmas
that
tree.
tree.
Oh, that's a
Christmas
cute
Oh
one.
man, that is
That's a
a
quick
collector. It's gonna be a few $1 million in like a year.
We got like 40 of them just waiting for that to happen. I'm just kidding. I wish.
This Oh, man. I
They
hope
were
that
so
happens.
hard to make.
Yeah. But he sent me I put in the form for the tree, for the raffle, that, hey, this is the first artisan that I ever bought and things like that. And he handwrites a note to me, and he includes it in that with that artisan, and he gave me one of his own artisans from his collection
Oh,
as
Yeah, a
well.
little hellbent cap right there. So, I mean, sometimes you just gotta pay it forward, you know. Welcome, and I'm sorry, I guess. That's kind of how it goes. It is a slippery slope, and if you have the resin addict ping, then it's an even more dangerous one.
it's over.
It's over. It's over. Yeah, and here's another
And
wheat
the
thing that I
party
got,
hat as well.
because I am also a RuneScape enjoyer.
It's
so-
glowing, so you know it's a week.
Oh
Yeah.
man.
Sorry.
But yeah, they're
I
like,
need a nightlight, you know, so that's why all my
Mhm.
caps have glow powder.
Did you have the star stickers that you could put on your ceiling as a kid?
Yes,
Dude,
I
me
did.
too. Me too.
Yes, I did.
it truly is, the littlest. It may seem like the littlest thing, but it can make a huge impact on someone's life, and I truly appreciate it from the bottom of my heart. The handwritten letter and the artisan from your collection, like that really meant a lot to me.
Of course. Well, I'm
Yeah.
happy that you obviously appreciate it, found a good home, and I mean that's truly, like we say, like that's what it's about. Like the real keycaps are the friends you made along the way, and I think that the least we can do as members of the community is be a half decent person. And it's like it's always fun to see new people entering the hobby. It's even more fun to see new people enter the resin hobby. So we're a niche within a niche, so you can't be exclusive. Got to be an open circle.
And it's thanks to you that I found out about Binge. Last but not least, how he impacted my life
Oh.
positively. I don't know if it was just randomly or if it was a raid, but all of a sudden I was in Binge's stream very many months ago, and this guy has the coolest taste in music and the most impeccable vibes when he streams, and it was like a giveaway thing. He was making something, but he also had a little giveaway at the very end. It was just like 3 or 4 of us in the Twitch chat, but he still went out of his way to do like a little giveaway. And he sent me this little guy. This dude.
Ooh, hidden
That's a
hunger.
that's a
Hidden
nice
hunger.
Yeah.
one.
It's got
Um,
that's the Cthulhu stamp on the back and little hidden hunger. Yeah, that was a B stock left over from the stereoscopic sale.
No, it's
I'm sending out the last of those hoots.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, somebody finally picked that up. I'm like, yes.
Well, and then Binge not only sends me also a handwritten note, but he puts it on a postcard, like a really awesome postcard, and included other postcards with awesome photography on it. I don't know if it's your photography or it's just like super nice index cards. I didn't bring them. They're at
Okay.
yeah, but
Do they have a spot for you to like write on the back?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, then those aren't mine. What I do now for auth cards is I pick up packs of postcards and I take pictures of the keys on the postcards as like the background, and then sometimes I'll take those postcards and write on them and send them off to people, and like they get the postcard, and I usually include a couple others. so they can write to people if they so desire.
I gotcha. Well,
Yeah.
that's super smart. Yeah, and then I got introduced to the Binge, and then I try and make as many streams as I can, and I eventually bought my probably the most expensive Artisans I ever bought, and it was Binge's 2-for-1 kind of deal for these B-stock Earl
Ooh,
things. So
Yep.
nice ones.
Yep. The only B stock is the it's missing eyeshadow, so it's
it's
functional.
beautiful, dude. Yeah. All this to say, it turned from something, oh, cool, I got something for free. It was a very nice gesture, to, hey, I want to support these people and their work. So I appreciate all three of you for making the impact on my life. Because at the end of the day, I just want to support you guys, whether it be buying your Artisans, whether it be catching your stream. It doesn't have to be monetary. I think time is the most valuable commodity that we have on this earth, right? It's the time you spend.
For sure.
So,
yeah. Every time you hop into a stream, it's fantastic. You're just like always giving out like really great energy, and you'll engage whenever you can, and that's all like anybody in my position could ever ask for. I think sometimes the work, I'm not sure what it's like for other people, but if I didn't have my hands on it, I would think it's kind of grueling sometimes. It can be interesting, it can be really beautiful, but like these two have sculpted at some point. I know they've sculpted something. I know Diego's sculpted some things, and he's like, no, I'm never going to show anybody what I've sculpted. But I know he's probably done it. I know he's done, so he knows.
I can.
He knows.
See it.
You can see it. But like anybody who's done it, like they'll tell you it takes as long as it takes, and sometimes like you can be really in the zone and have a project, and you're like, this is what I wanted it to be, and it's done really quickly, and sometimes you work towards that vision until it's until you can't stand it anymore. I often get to that because I've got some pretty lofty ideals about what I want to achieve with any given piece. But can I take this as a handoff?
Yeah. I want to hear the three of you, how it's impacted your life. Yeah.
Artisans impacted my life by broadening it. I think being as well traveled as like a keyboard enthusiast, and somebody who brokers electronics to people, like, I keep in communication with folks around the world, and that's part of why I really think keyboards are super cool, and any art around keyboards is super cool, because it literally opens up doors for people to understand more about the world around them. But Artisans were the first time that, because I invested so much of myself into it, it became like the way I make my living, that I also started to explore the world and more cultures, and it really got me out of like rural Pennsylvania. That was the thing that that Artisans really did for me. I started to think about the world as a much bigger place and care about it differently. You think you know a lot. You think you hear enough on the like news sources or social media or whatever, but I think if you have a job or something that just gets you out there and really experiencing all different kinds of people and trying to suggest that people in other cultures take my artwork seriously, it feels very daunting to me, because I realize that anybody on the different part of the planet, they didn't grow up knowing me. They don't know me. They don't know anything about my humor or my sense of color. Like, they may have their own ideas about color that's been shaped by their history or whatnot, or their own sense of like the artists that they follow. And for people to give me the time of day regarding my ideas or what kind of colors I use, and find a way to connect on that level. It's eye opening, it's inspiring, and it really just makes it makes the experience something that I wouldn't want to trade for anything else. If this all has to at some point end for me, it's definitely going to be like the peak has been being an artisan, getting to share my art with a global community. And kind of on that note, a little bit, I'm kind of disappointed about what's happening this side of the Atlantic and in this hemisphere area, because it feels like I'm getting kind of separated from that global community. If I can just say that I hope everybody else out there outside of these borders is just being awesome, because I'm trying to say, you everybody domestic and internationally made this like everything that it is for me, and that's how it's changed my life.
Yeah, Artisan's resin. It's definitely, yeah, an all-consuming part of my life. As of the recent portion of it, it has been a very significant creative outlet for myself. It has been a way for me to connect with people, connect with friends that I already had, and also develop new friendships and ones that are like very significant in my life. Like when I go back to Chicagoland area, like I make time out of my schedule, out of my vacation visit, work trip, whatever it is, to see keyboard friends as well as people who I grew up with and things like that. So it's like it has been a great gateway to meet some fantastic people. And yeah, not to take away how validating it is for somebody to appreciate something that I physically made. I do think that it is wild to think that somebody wants to spend their money on something that I created, and it is cool because at the end of the day, I make caps because I like them, and if nobody entered a raffle, I'm still gonna make caps. If I stop selling caps, like I'll probably still be making them for myself because that's why I initially started out of that curiosity. So I think at the end of the day, it is just such a fantastic vessel for relationships to be with like-minded people for the most part. I think we're all pretty, I'm not saying nerdy, but yeah, we're all pretty
Yes, we are.
nerdy. I mean, let's be real here. It's like we're going for the most of us who go to keyboard conventions, like we're at hyper nerd conventions, and it's like
Yeah.
that's it's nice to be able to go to these settings and just yeah, like you said, be on a level playing field with everybody you meet, and no opinions about like this hobby is wrong because it's such an opinionated thing, and it's like I love hearing why somebody likes one cap but doesn't like another cap, or why they think I could have done this better, or why they think I did great on this. It's all just good conversation. And at the end of the day, I think, yeah, we need a lot more good conversation. And that's a great place for it, at least in our hobby. And yeah, definitely has impacts outside of that as well.
And
Nice.
someone who fosters good conversations, Mr. Lightning.
I'm not sure if I do that, but yeah, I think it's obviously changed my life. I mean, so I guess for me, I kind of come in from a different perspective from Binge and Wheat. Obviously, I'm more of the consumer side of things here, and so obviously on one end, I have a pretty sizable collection, which sometimes when speaking with my partner or some other people, it brings me slight bit of shame in the sense that I'm like, oh. They're like, I could have spent it on what? And then I'm like, but I totally don't regret it. Like I've never really regretted it. And I still, don't really regret it because it's something that has brought both joy as well as it has broadened my like essentially every scope in terms of like interactions with people out there who both work in similar fields as mine, as well as, you know, who are in completely different domains that I would otherwise never be in touch with ever, you know. Like it would have to be some kind of cold call or be like in a very specific event or something like that for me to ever connect with people that I've connected with over the years. And you know, as we've said a few times, like on a level playing field, right? Like to arrive to a meetup and have people of all ages, of all paths of life, and of all kinds of background in the same place, talking about the same exciting things that we're interested in, or you know, maybe different, but still, you know, being able to do so, and without, you know, without much judgment really, or without much care as to, you know, what the other person might be thinking, you know, I guess subjectively that one might like one thing more than the other person, but we are still kind of there to listen, just to have fun, right? And so that's changed a lot for me. Like it's changed me socially as a person. It's changed me in terms of like who I feel I am in terms of like my own footprint on the world. And so for me, it's been super important in terms of like, yeah, it's been an outlet as much as it's been for me to soak in a lot of like very positive and just overall like very eye-opening perspective from out there. So yeah, for me, like I think it's been, you know, like on the consumer side, I might say like, yeah, I've spent a pretty penny, but it's been worth the penny. And so I think that's kind of how I feel about this whole thing, is that it's because, you know, I do this because it is fun. You know, on the side of like keyboards, you know, I still do it even after all these years of, you know, effectively doing the same thing over and over again. I still do it because it still is fun. You know, I think as Weed and Binge said, you know, it's the moment when we stop. It's going to be that moment where that joy has been taken away, or that, you know, it's no longer that kind of fun anymore. So yeah, I think it's great to have people around us who can kind of foster that environment and kind of nurture it even now, after all these years. And so personally, you know, for me it's been an amazing time getting to know all these people, and I think that's the best part of being involved in both keyboards and artisans, and really artisans because it's really broadened my horizons and interests, like way beyond. Like I really, there were so many things I didn't know about art before, and I just got interested and I started looking into them, and then I learned about this style and learn about another artist who is completely outside of this um you know, arena, field, whatever. And then I'm like, oh, so that's where they drew their inspiration from. I had no idea they even existed. Turns out they're a popular artist with millions of followers or whatever. I was like, I never heard that name because I'm that uncultured, you know, or keeping up with music that people recommend. And I'm like, you know, it's just, you just learn a lot of new things just because you interact with new people like that, from everywhere. That's great.
It's so amazing to hear the three of your stories about how it's impacted your life and continues to impact your life. Um, it's why we like the very last segment, the good keyboard friend of the week. I like to give a platform for people to nominate individuals that have done something positive in their life or the community. If you want to nominate someone and you want us to read it at the end of every episode, you can either just DM me, Black Simon, James, or Tangus through Discord. Leave a comment on the YouTube video or on the Spotify episode or on the Instagram post, or go to hugemeatbox.com. It is safe for work. It's just our link tree, thanks to Simon. hugemeatbox.com. On the very top, there's a Google form link, and you click on that Google form. You put in your name. It could be anonymous. You put in the name of the person that you want to nominate, and you put a reason why you're nominating them, what they've done, a positive thing that they've done. And at the end of every episode, we read them. So I'll read mine. It is not a requirement for all of us to have it, all of us to have one or multiple. But if you have any, that's totally fine. But I'll start with mine. We will have these three gentlemen on again in the near future for sure. Wheat deserves his own episode. I wanted to get him on here just for like a little like a warm up episode, just to hang out. And then Diego and Binge, people have been asking for you to be on again. It's just we're going through the backlog of guests. I'm sorry if it seems like we're sliding anybody, but someone that has nominated someone. So we have Moods here. Moods nominated his friend Smob, SMOB, and it simply states he's just a top guy.
Nice.
There it is.
We love
It doesn't have to be super in depth. It could just be something like that. So that is my nomination, and I'll hand it off to the three of you. If anybody has nominations they want to shout out.
Yeah, I'll start, and I've got a list, and it's all just because I think without just without we wouldn't be where we are right now, and as okay of a position as we are. And then the first shout out I have to say is to a group, the Hunger Support Group. Changed my life during COVID, and yeah, I wouldn't be here otherwise. And then you, Hubert, along with Keshley, are probably like my two most avid stream watchers. And so like you guys get the special as a host of a stream. You lift my spirits. You really do. And then I want to shout out to two makers who aren't wheat. because I love wheat, and wheat's right here, and I got to shower him with a little bit of praise earlier. But Mastonon and Alheckz have been like I'm just batting 1,000 every time I interact with them. It's always a good time. I always leave, more inspired, and they've been enabling my I think my best ideas recently. And so yeah, thank you all.
I can go next, I guess. My nomination is basically nobody will know, but it's going to be to my friend Steve from many years ago. IRL friend of mine, but really the person who kind of even before that, momentous meetup, like almost 9 years ago, even before that, he kind of introduced me to just like the general concept of what keyboards were about, back when we were still in school, actually. And we suffered through senior design together. For those of you who know about engineering school, capstone project senior design is a thing, and it's horrible. And you get stuck with a team, and he and I just had to power through. And yeah, Steve, he is a great guy who was interested in, at the time, he was interested in like, kind of like, yeah, computers, vintage typewriters, and of course mechanical keyboards. On the keyboard side, he was interested in like doing like SP grab bag type of trades, like keycap trades, and doing the whole vomit board sort of thing, but also just like switches and weird things, But at the time, I was just like, cool knickknacks, it's all right, it's neat. But as he learned later that I got interested in keyboards, he gave me that this Tata 68 with, I think it was like Gateron Clear's lightest, worst switch ever. But not really, but not a great switch, just too light and too unusable for me. But it was a fun gateway to smaller layouts too, and it was kind of like thanks to him that the interest really peaked on me when I went to that meetup. I think if I hadn't been previously exposed to that thanks to him, nothing now would be the way it is. And so just want to give a relatively anonymous shout out to my friend Steve, who is out there. I'm sure he will never hear this, but I do know that he at one point discovered that I built keyboards. He was like, apparently he was browsing on Twitch, and he was like, fuck is this guy? And he was like, I recognize you. And then he was like, you've been into this for this long? And I'm like,
so far.
Yeah. So yeah, my bud Steve, who's out there, thank you. And he's a great keyboard friend, even
Thank you,
though he
Steve.
technically isn't really into keyboards now. But I know that he's out.
I do have some folks who I think are fantastically good keyboard friends. Not of just the week, but of always, which is great and fantastic to have in the community. I'm gonna echo off you, Binge, because you're so resoundingly right. Alheckz is such a cool guy, and he's gonna hate that we say this. Yeah, Alex is, since I really joined as like a quote unquote serious maker, but like trying to figure out how this works as not just me piling up endless keycaps in a plastic bag in my house, but how do I like make this a presentable thing to sell to people or to even just like show anybody and not be so astoundingly embarrassed about. So yeah, Alex definitely helped me really feel like I could just do me in this hobby and not have to worry about what other people thought and what standards there are outside of what I have for myself and what my art is. And as long as like people are happy, who cares? That's a good way to think about it. And yeah, fantastic. Another person I wanted to consider a very good keyboard friend of the week and always is a guy named Reggalicious. He's a Utah friend of mine, a a fantastically cool dude in all ways, shapes, and forms. He turns all of those pullers that Diego is showing there, almost all of them, except for ones that we don't like to show people. We're to show them anyways. Oh god. Alrighty, yeah, tells me to express my art in weird and fun ways, and it's nice to have people push you in like a supportive way. Yeah, so that's just unturned blank in a nice
Yeah.
little blue. And then another person who is so adamant on making weirder and weirder things every day is JQ. Michael's awesome. And another person who's really influential in like my journey as a collector and a consumer and a creator. Just yeah, somebody who really, I'd say, made me feel that it is okay to just fuck around and find out like if things don't work, like that's okay. And it's okay to try and try again because that's just how it works. And the creative process isn't always super straightforward. And it's good to have good keyboard people around you to remind you of that.
Thank you guys. Thank you to all the good keyboard friends that were nominated. Again, thank you three for the time you spent with me tonight. Thank you the watchers and the listeners. If you're usually just a audio only listener, if you're able to check out the video portion, video part of this video version of this podcast, because there's some awesome artisans and things and things that Diego showed. But yeah, don't forget to say thank you to your good keyboard friends and your friends who you made through keyboards. Say thank you for them having a positive impact on your life, and never forget it. Pass it forward as much as you can, and don't forget to support these three if you can. If it's just non-monetary, that's fine, but Diego streams. He has a Discord. Again, I'll drop all everybody's links in the description. Wheat obviously has a Discord, and he makes artisans. And then Binge streams, has a Ko-Fi now. Ko-Fi?
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 I'm not sure. I call it the Ko-Fi.
Yeah. So you can support him that way. You can support him through the stream. You can support him by buying his work, or just spending time and just hanging out with him. But
yeah, if you're a artisan who's out there, I've also got something called the Community Core Keycap project that I just launched. I made a kind of skeletal sculpt with Alheckz, and we're opening up the skeleton so that anybody can sculpt on top of it, and you have that sculpt. So whatever you do with that initial shape, and I can give you that initial shape as either a finished keycap or a mold, that you can get off my site, and it's yours after that. And if you modify it, then you can do what you want with it. And we want to see it. We want to see it. Tag us.
On behalf of myself, Tangus, Simon, James, Diego, Wheat, and Binge, thanks for watching and listening, and we'll talk to you next time. Goodbye, everybody.
Good night.
Right.